Good morning, all. And what a beautiful morning it is. It's nice and dry out. The sun is shining. I just got back. It's Friday morning, so all that humidity cleared out. Got up and went for a beautiful sunrise hike over Comitic Mountain. And it's just so nice out, and it's so dry, relatively speaking, and it looks like the weather weekend is going to be beautiful as well. So I hope you guys can get out and enjoy it, do some swimming. So today we're going to be talking about imagination. And you might think, well, what does that have to do? We've been talking about social justice. What does imagination have to do with social justice? Well, we will get into that. But first, I'm going to read you a story by Robert Fulghum. And he wrote a book that my mom gave me when I was young that we both loved. Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. Robert Fulghum is the guy's name. And he also wrote It Was on Fire When I Laid Down on It. And my mom and I would read these. We had all of them when I was young, when I was sort of a teenager, young adult. We both read these books many times and enjoyed these stories together. So I am pleased to share this particular story with you by Robert Fulghum. And this is an essay he wrote it. So this is something that actually happened. This is a true story. So, and this is Robert Fulghum's story. We say the young have much to learn, but I find they know and do things unfamiliar to me, so I'm pleased to learn from them when I can. So, for example, two young college men asked me for a ride because they were late to work. Their summer construction job was near my office, so I was glad to oblige. On the way, I asked, beside working hard and playing hard, what's happening in your lives? They exchanged glances, and then one said, we're eating a chair. What? Yes, it seems strange that their college philosophy teacher gave them an extra credit assignment. The assignment was do something unique and memorable, not dangerous or foolish, but something imaginative, inventive, and instructive. Write it up and explain what was learned and how it might apply to their philosophy of life. So they're eating a chair. They actually did this. They bought a plain wooden kitchen chair at an unfinished furniture store, so there was no finish on it. Using a wood rasp, they have been shaving away at the chair and mixing the dust into their granola at breakfast, sprinkling the dust on their salads at dinner. So far, they have consumed most of a leg, 2 rungs, and a back piece. And while they don't want to overdo it, the pace is picking up. Still, the project may not be finished before summer's end, so they may enlist friends who, it seems, are enthusiastically willing to help eat a chair. And yes, they consulted a physician to make sure that wood dust was not harmful. And no, it doesn't taste bad, especially if they mix in a little cinnamon at breakfast and a little lemon pepper at dinner. And yes, they have learned a few things along the way. Like what, I asked? Like how amazing long-term goals can be achieved in incremental stages. Like how something seemingly idiotic affects your thinking about other things you do. For example, they routinely run about 15 miles a week to stay in shape, around and around a lake. They wondered where 15 miles a week would take them if they ran in a straight line. So they got out a road map and have been marking off the mileage heading south. They could be in Portland, Oregon in a couple of weeks. But that's boring, so they have a European map now and are starting out in Vienna, headed for Athens. Using these guidebooks, they're figuring out what there is to see and do along the way, and they're touring the world in their minds. And of course, they're very pleased with themselves. They're sure that they'll astound their professor when he asks for their report. We ate a chair. It will blow the dude away, said one. For all the goofiness of the project, these young men are learning patience and preservation. Some things cannot be had, except on a little at a time, keep the long goal in mind, stay focused basis. Love and friendship are like that. Marriage and parenthood, too. And peace and justice and social change. As wonderfully silly as it seems, eating a chair may lead my young college friends to wisdom and nobler aspirations. In their foolishness lies the seed of what might be, little by little. So that's his wonderful story. So what do you think? Do you think that's crazy that they ate a chair? Or just imaginative? And what is the difference between something that's crazy or something that's, I'm sorry, there are my crystal light from my little window crystals flying around all over the place today, this morning. So what's the difference between something that's imaginative or crazy? Where's that line when something imaginative becomes crazy? Or can something be both? Or does it even matter? Now, would you call what they did, that eating a chair, do you think that's crazy or imaginative, or maybe both? Or what do you think about that? And if you were their professor, what grade would you give them? I mean, the professor asked them to be imaginative. It was definitely that. Inventive. I think so, because of how they figured out, like, I mean, how they sawed like the sawdust, so they found a way they could actually eat it and not have it be too weird. And instructive. Do you think it was instructive? Certainly, if I had students that did that, I just think for the pure, I mean, who would think of that? I would give them a pretty good grade, because I think it's pretty cool what they did. But was it instructive? I mean, if you think about the story and what they said, that it started getting them thinking about other things, about, you know, how they're running, how they could sort of look at that differently and pretend that they're running through Europe instead of around and around this lake. And now they're learning about these places in Europe. So I think that's pretty instructive. It's also instructive in that they are, as Robert Fulham said, that they're learning patience and perseverance, right? Because it takes a long time. You can't, to eat a chair, if you're just eating the sawdust from the chair, you can only do a little bit of time, and you really just have to do a little time, keep going. You aren't going to see change right away, right? When you first you're first sawing off, just sanding off a little bit of dust from the chair, you aren't going to see much happening. And it might be tempting at that point, when you don't see change, to just give up and say, no, this isn't going to work, because look, this is like a teaspoon of sawdust. How long is it going to take this to eat this entire chair? Well, they had already eaten, like, what, how much? A bunch of the legs and some of the back. So social change is the same thing, right? You do these little things, you might not see much of a difference at first. You might only see little differences. You might barely see any difference at all. But you got to keep sanding away, eating that sawdust. And eventually you have that, if you stick to it and show that perseverance, then change starts to happen. So I think it's pretty cool what they did. And it's definitely imaginative. Now, another way imagination is important for social change is think about art. Think about artists who create music or visual art. I'm thinking about some of the images I've seen lately relating to Black Lives Matter, or some of the music that you hear that people have created around maybe the pandemic, or around the Black Lives Matter movement, or music that from the past. That, I mean, think of the song "We Shall Overcome," right? That was such a iconic song for what was going on in the 60s, the social change that was going on then. So art, and that's art. Art is imagination. So it's really important as a part of the social justice movement. And I think why I think it's important is because art does two things. One, it touches people, right? It sort of touches your soul, or should. If it's good art, it touches your soul. And art often makes you think, or it might make you see something in a different way, right? I think that's what good art does. And those are two really important things for social change. You need to touch people's soul. You really need to connect with them at that level where you're really touching their soul. And also really important to be able to see things in a different way. And art can, in order to affect social change, and art can help do that. So imagination is a big part of social justice and creating change. So we're going to do a little activity, and this is fun. I feel like it. It's just a silly little thing. So it's time to change the world, right? Now, I want each of you to choose what kind of superhero you would be in order to change the world. So maybe you can sprout food from your fingers so you can feed the entire world. Something like that. So what I want you to do is, I'm going to pause the video for a minute and take about 5 minutes to maybe draw a picture of you in your superhero costume, come up with a name for your superhero, and a little statement about what your superhero does or stands for, and how that superhero will work to create justice in the world. So go ahead, and you need some paper and maybe some colored pencils or crayons or just regular pencils or whatever, and to create your superhero. So take about 5 minutes. I'm going to pause the video, and I'll see you when you're done. Okay, actually, so hopefully you've done your superhero. You've created your superhero by now. And I said I was going to pause the video, but actually you were the ones that would be pausing the video, right? So anyway, I hope you've done your superhero, and I will share with you mine. I don't have a drawing. What I do have is these. Oh, they sort of stink because they're shoes. Here, let me back up. There you go. These may just look like ordinary shoes, but they aren't. These are superhero shoes. And what they do, well, let me explain to you first. So what they do is help people see the other side of things. I don't have a good name yet for my superhero. I was thinking like see the other side girl. It's sort of boring, or like switcheroo girl, sort of like. So how it works is there was a little background. There's a story when I was a kid that it's probably still around called Freaky Friday, but I don't know if anyone reads it anymore. It might have just been my generation. But Freaky Friday was this book, this kid's book. And what happened is this girl wakes up, and it turns out she's in the body of her mom. And her mom woke up in the body of her daughter, and they have this whole day with all these shenanigans and everything. And so they basically were in each other's shoes for the day, right? So that's what my superpower is. These are these special shoes, like zap, zap, switcheroo, and two people will switch each other's shoes for the day, or switch each other's bodies for the day, and get perspective on how the other person sees the world. So I chose this superpower because I believe that that can help people. I think understanding where other people are coming from is so important. And I know it's not something I'm very good at. I tend to be just very centered, focused in my head and all the time. And especially in the summer on MDI with all the tourists, I just get annoyed at the tourists and someone in line and they're being all slow. I'm like, oh, come on, I want to get home and have my dinner. And this person's being all slow. Well, maybe they're being slow because they have some health issue and they can't do anything about it. Or, you know, all the tourists, they're just up here enjoying Acadia National Park, a beautiful national park. And I mean, I write hiking guides. I'm an advocate of people getting outside and enjoying nature, right? So I shouldn't be criticizing all these tourists that are coming to do exactly that. So this is why I want others. So I want to be better at seeing other people's perspective and understanding people better. But also, when you understand where another person is coming from, you see the world differently, and you can much more appreciate what they have to deal with. So that is my superpower. So the second part, now that you've created your imaginary superhero, think about what you could do as a regular person, not a superhero, to put forth in your own life what that superhero does. So let's say that if your superpower, if your superpower was like to sprout food out of your fingers to feed the world so no one went hungry, well, you can't actually do that, right? Your superheroes open, but you can't. So what if you went and volunteered at a community garden or a soup kitchen or like a food pantry to help get food to people who are in need? So think about ways, and I'm going to do that with mine too. How can I help people? How can I help create understanding between people, both of myself? How can I be better? Which is something I just need to do, right? Be a little more generous with people and less judgy, and think about what they might be going through, whether it's about little things or big things. But also, how can I help create understanding among other people? How can I take those shoes and zap them and switch them and help other people see other people's perspective? So I want you to do that too. Think about how you can use those superhero powers in your everyday life. So that is it for today. I will actually see you soon, live and in person. I didn't make it last week. My back is standing up right now to do this because I can't sit. But I will be there on Sunday this week. So I look forward to seeing you then. So Have a good week, stay safe, and be kind.